Haikyuu has this funny way of being completely different on each rewatch. It just feels like a whole new show, depending on what you've been going through lately. Certain scenes will stand out more, you'll see what characters do in different ways, and then, soon enough, out of nowhere, you'll be hit with that scene that makes you pause the episode and just sit there, almost shocked as a single scene somehow perfectly presents the solution to your problem. Recently for me, it's been that feeling of being behind in life, and Haikyuu just solved it. It just got rid of that awful feeling for me. I've always liked the scene, but on my latest rewatch, it hit very, very differently. As is the case with all well-written shows, this scene doesn't start on the episode it's in, but much, much earlier. So let's head back to the start of season 4. Karasuno just pulled off the impossible, taking down Shiro Torizawa and the overwhelming Ushiwaka. As they're testing the new vertical jumps, Kageyama gets the news that he's been selected for national level training, which realistically isn't too much of a surprise, but there's another announcement. A smaller first year only camp on a regional level is also being held. And when it was mentioned that one of the team was invited, I immediately assumed it would be Hinata, but as the news hits that it was in fact Tsukishima instead, combined with Kageyama being a dick about it, Hinata's frustration grows and grows, because this is not the first time he's been through this. Since day one, he's been the one left behind. He had to train on his own for a team sport for 3 years. He struggled to do anything without Kageyama. He still kind of does. And now after finally making some progress, to have even made Ushiwaka acknowledge him, to be rejected for this camp is understandably extremely frustrating for him. And it's something I've been feeling a lot myself lately. I've just started a new job and I put so much effort into all my exams through A-level in the university, but whilst I ended up getting top grades, it didn't really do much for me. Although it's not all bad, the current job is very frustrating, and I can't help but feel as though when I look around at people I know back where I used to live or people I went to university with and just where I thought I would be, I feel very, very behind and truthfully quite useless. I had that same overwhelming, stomach-churning feeling that Hinata has as he breaks into the first year training camp. He takes this drastic, reckless action to try and catch back up, with the hope he'll get to train alongside these other great players, but as he gets an earful of Ukai, the Shiro Torizawa coach tells Takada it's fine if we have another ball boy. And immediately this just sounds like a complete waste of time. Being a ball boy whilst everyone else is training, but Coach Ukai says this is a brilliant opportunity for him, a point I'll come back to. However, the Shiro Torizawa coach evidently doesn't agree, as he brutally tells Hinata, without that Sesa Kageyama, I don't see any worth in you. And although it's a horrible, horrible thing to say, you can't hear something like that and not get fired up to prove them wrong. And so Hinata, with a fiery yell, declares, I'm a ball boy and I'm 164 centimeters tall. And it's really interesting that he mentions his height. Evidently that's something that's been on his mind as he's surrounded by all the giants selected for this training camp. However, this bravado doesn't last long, as by the end of the day he's realized that he spent all this time just as a ball boy, whilst everyone else is getting ahead and training. But just as I was thinking about how much this relates to my own situation, and I felt my own frustration growing again, Coach Ukai says a line that hit me like a truck, that made me pause the episode as all the pieces started fitting together in my brain. Think about what it is only you can do there. Don't go underestimating what it takes to be a ball boy. Why did I say Hinata had spent his time just as a ball boy? Why did me, Hinata, and everyone else assume that being a ball boy would automatically be a bad thing? Because Hinata proves this very, very wrong. What initially seemed like an awful situation turned out to be exactly what he needed. Obviously, I'm only 24. I don't have all the answers, but in my experience, things in life are far too complicated for us to be so sure that our initial assumption was correct. Often we can't know for sure until we really get stuck into it, or perhaps we won't even realize why until years and years later. You know, part of what makes Hinata so terrifying for the opponents is his relentless, inhuman drive to hit every single ball. There's just no one else on the planet with that kind of drive because no one else was denied simply hitting the ball for so long. No one else had spent 3 years training alone for a team sport. That whole time he must have felt so frustrated, so disadvantaged, and so behind. And if you tried to explain to him that this would actually end up being so beneficial to him, he wouldn't have believed you. And yes, of course, if he had a more normal training route, his fundamentals would have been a lot stronger, but he can always work on those later, you know, as he has done. But he got this unique, one-of-a-kind advantage from a seemingly awful situation. And hopefully you see the point I'm making. You know, don't be so quick to write things off as being awful. You know, even if it feels like they are, you very well may end up looking back and thinking, that led me down a much better path than I ever could have planned to. Now, of course, there will be exceptions to this, but as hard as it is to accept, sometimes not getting what you want in this very moment right now will get you something so much better for years to come. And it'll be something which is just incomprehensible to you right now. You know, so in my case, let's suppose everything went the way I wanted. I got a perfect job out of uni which paid really well and wasn't so long hours. There's just no way I'd have the same drive I do for this channel. There's no way I would, but if I tried to explain that to myself a year ago, where I was working a very humiliating job, I was pretty broke, I was just very miserable for reasons I'm not going to go into in this video, but if I tried to explain to myself then that I would actually look back at that period as a very important, very beneficial time in my life, I wouldn't have believed myself because there was just no way to explain to myself back then that it would result in this whole journey of me learning all these things and then eventually making a YouTube channel on it. And who knows how big this will become and where it will lead me. You know, maybe I'll come back to this video in a year, but as Hinata will tell you, you can't always tell where the ball is going just from watching it alone. You need to look at the whole court. It's just very unfortunate that we often can't do that until much later on. So we just need to have the faith that as long as we keep trying to progress, we keep working on ourselves and keep moving forward, at some point eventually, the ball is going to come right to us. And that is exactly what happens. It's about halfway through the final set of Inarizaki, and Karasuno are barely hanging on as Atsumu and his team continue to overwhelm them. Hinata's simple serve is received by Aaron, and after a couple back and forths, Atsumu leaps forward to set the ball to his twin, who then completely breaks the Karasuno defense by baiting them into a block. The ball flies across to Aaron, and with no Karasuno blockers in place, Atsumu just laughs as all the pieces fit together for Inarizaki and Karasuno crumbles. Except for one man about to prove the whole world wrong about him, whose blind faith in himself, a faith that no one else or even he could really understand at the time, finally pays off. As everyone falls into silence in awe of what's just happened, Kagearen admits he never thought a day would come where he would say, "Nice receive" to Hinata. But Hinata isn't interested in any of that because as the ball connects with his hands, everything he's been through up until this point finally connects to. I don't know if this was intentional of the writer, but Hinata is in the exact right place at the exact right time, not just in terms of his receive, but in everything before that as well. All that time he spent at training camp just as a ball boy, that felt so frustrating and meaningless. Yet, if he hadn't taken the time to go through that kind of period, he would have never have achieved this beautiful receive. And now you're looking at it this way, you'll start to make the most of the situation that you're in. You know, for Hinata, not having a team to practice with is about as awful as it can get for someone whose goal is to become a volleyball player, especially for a game so heavily dependent on teamwork. But instead of simply saying, well, I'll just have to wait until things change, he made the most of it, training on his own, training with the women's team, training with his friends who didn't even play volleyball when he could manage to convince them to do so. He took making the most of a bad situation to an insane level. But going back to what I was saying, maybe it wasn't a bad situation. As impossible as it may be to understand right now, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. I'm going through this right now, I'm looking around me at different players and wishing I was where they are, but the ball isn't going to them. It's going to somewhere I can't even figure out at the moment. But I know a year from now, I'll look back and realize that even if I couldn't realize it at the time, I was standing in the perfect place all along. Thanks for watching, bro. If you haven't already, check out my other Haikyuu video. If you enjoyed this, and obviously all the algorithm stuff really helps me, the subs, the likes, the comments. Otherwise, have a great day and see you again soon.